Welcome to Own It, the podcast where we talk to real estate thought leaders about embracing your strengths, taking your career to new heights, and owning your future. I'm Hillary Saunders, joined today by my talented voiceover artist co-host, Spencer Kroll.
I'll accept that.
And you know who
Hillary.
else is a talented SAG member? Our guest.
I actually do, yeah.
Yeah. Tia Hunnicutt, welcome to Own It. You are the founder of Proxima Realty in Oakland, California. You're a fair housing advocate. You're a very dedicated volunteer member of NAR, CAR, all the things. I don't know how you have time to do any of this, but you made time for us today. So thank you for joining us.
I did. It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
This is one podcast that I've looked forward to for a while because you have such a cool changing career. And now with your advocacy and participation in all these realtor organizations, you have such a cool view of it.
And I'm really intrigued by your brand, Proxima. So what does the name mean, first off, and how did you craft it?
Sure. So the name of the brand is Proxima Realty Group. I named it after Proxima Centauri, which is the next nearest solar system to us. And I really wanted to be future thinking as far as real estate is concerned, because the status quo is not sustainable. So I wanted to be inspired by the stars. I wanted my agents to be inspired to envision things differently, craft a new paradigm, and really look at and reevaluate what homeownership is going to mean for the next century and beyond.
I quite frankly have so many questions to ask you, I don't even know where to start. But from a 30,000 foot level, where do you see the industry today and where do you want to take it?
Right. So where I see the industry today is at an inflection point. I think a lot of the issues that we have, both on the political level and as far as the way the public views realtors, is because homeownership and homeownership opportunities are honestly few and far between, and getting more so. And my market, the Bay Area, exemplifies that. Right. My first-time home buyers, maybe can get in a condo. They have to layer down payment assistance to be able to do so. And then my move-up buyers, of course, are in a better position. In my situation, many of my move-up buyers bought right after the last financial crisis, so they were able to get homes at affordable prices. And then they've seen those homes appreciate $1 million in some cases, right? Just sitting in the property, right? I don't know that those opportunities still exist because the home prices are so far out of whack versus the more typical salary, right? I mean, your tech folks are always going to be fine, but there's a lot of people that live in my area that are not bringing home tech salaries. So a lot of my advocacy, especially at the national level, but certainly at the state level, is to try to harness some of those resources and really drive them towards inventory production, because I see that as the real problem. Obviously, the commissions that agents were getting were not driving home prices, right? That's a very...
that's a misnomer?
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
A very uninformed view of how supply and demand works, right? If you had more properties, then the prices would be cheaper.
I do want to pivot to television for a moment because of your career. You were an actress. I don't know if you still act or if you still pursue that at all. And you were a dancer as well with Martha Graham, which is amazing that that the discipline that it took for that. Why did you pivot into real estate? Because a lot of people go from modeling or acting into real estate. So I'm just curious why that came.
Yeah, I think first of all, we're used to putting ourselves together well, which is a big part of the job. I think secondarily, we are used to auditioning, which is what listing appointments and buyer consultations really are. And I think we're used to an uneven income. You know?
Sure.
That's
So
fair.
yeah,
Sure,
so I
yeah.
think that's a lot of it as well. We're used to the up and downs. We're used to having to fight for every opportunity, and so it feels a little bit more comfortable to us because that's what we're used to.
Do you feel that you have more control as a real estate agent than you did as an actress?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then also, I'm far too old to be pursuing acting anymore. And that's just the reality of the industry. So I love what I do now. I particularly love the advocacy space. I feel like I'm making a huge difference as far as being part of what we do is we communicate to our politicians what's going on. So there's a new opportunity that I have with a new representative that we're going to have for the Bay Area or for Alameda County. So that's going to be a great opportunity to communicate. Because we are really starting to see the result of not having these home ownership opportunities, particularly with our younger millennials and Gen Z, who are also where our biggest opportunities are as far as clients are concerned. Right, and a lot of them are turning off to the entire concept of owning anything and feeling that everything should be socialized. And so that's something that when I was on Capitol Hill yesterday, I discussed with Barbara Lee, and it's very much a concern to her because she's seeing it and I see it too. I have two Gen Zs at home, and thankfully I have a millennial as well, and he is a proud DC homeowner.
Oh.
So we're very, very happy about that. And I think, I've been able to really communicate to them the value of owning something. Right.
Right.
Looking at what our future will hold with automation and AI and that sort of thing, I think it's extremely important that people own something.
Given the unique space of being at NAR and you've got realtors from, every state in the US coming together, what are you hearing as far as like the middle of the country? Are they also experiencing the difficulty for first time home buyers? I think because on the coasts we're exacerbated. That's what me personally as well, we see prices that have skyrocketed.
Right.
And for the average teacher, firefighter, worker, those dreams are being dashed
Sure.
unless they have some in somehow. But is that what you're hearing across the country too, or are there different regions?
There are, and it kind of depends on where you are. I mean, you have a place like Detroit, which is an urban metro, but it's gone the other way in terms of people moving out. And so you have a lot of properties that are just kind of sitting vacant. And so we need to come up with different strategies to revitalize an area like that because they've lost their primary industry,
Right.
right? So that's their issue. Then you have a place like Austin, which has grown exponentially, and where now they're losing a little bit of that pressure because people move there, particularly the tech sector, chasing the tax benefits, but now they want to come back to the Bay Area. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But that's one of those areas that's really, really grown. And then you have vast rural areas in the Midwest who do have other challenges. And that's actually something that a few years back when I was on the business tech committee at NAR, I was really excited to advocate for because a lot of the rural parts of the country and even Hunters Point, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
in San Francisco, don't have cell coverage, don't have proper broadband. And it's kind of crazy to think, right? Because we're on our phones all the time. That's where we get a lot of our information from. To think that there are vast swaths of the country where people don't have that access. They don't have access to the information. And maybe that's why they're making the policies that they are, is because they just don't have it.
Yeah, and one of the things which I find really fascinating about you is your command of what's going on in the industry, and what's going on nationally. And you just brought something else up where you're talking about, and I think this is where real estate agents and realtors, if NAR gets back in gear again, can really move the needle. And I think these are the things that we need to be doing to advocate for the industry. You just talked about some area of the country where you and I are probably never going to live, but you're saying that home ownership can do this, and in order to get more homes here, we need this. And how involved are you at all with different states other than California?
Right. Well, that's the nice thing about NAR, because that's really more of a national lens. I will say the problem that we're seeing in some of these other states is the institutional investors. And that's something that we should all be ringing the alarm on. And I understand that some of the policy has to be made at the state level as far as some of these things are concerned. But what's happening is they're buying up vast swaths and turning them into rental housing. And I personally believe, because I live in a very expensive area, that once you start down the rent train, it's very hard to pull up and go the other direction.
Yeah.
So, a big part of what we're trying to work on this year is really make sure we're reaching out to our kids that are in high school, right? Because a lot of public schools and schools in general have lost their financial literacy classes, just like they lost band, just like they lost the arts, like they're losing the libraries. They've lost the financial literacy as well. Simple things like how to balance a checkbook. Why is
What's a
homeownership
check?
important? Right?
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Or whatever,
Yeah. Right.
digital version
Well,
of checking.
this is one of my favorite discussion points, which is generational wealth and bringing that education to the traditionally underserved communities and just sparking that interest in someone to understand this is how you can set your family up for the future. And traditionally, that was not taught in the Black and Brown communities. And part of our DEI council at SIDE, which is a wonderful thing, is I know a lot of partners like you and Roy Machado at Al City Homes are really taking that to heart and teaching classes to those communities. What opportunities are there for other realtors who are listening to get involved or to bring those educations to the buyer population?
Well, this is a big topic, and I'm glad you brought it up. And thank you for doing that. So, in addition to it not having historically been taught to those communities, you had systemic and structural boundaries preventing those communities from obtaining generational wealth, whether it is something like the Tulsa massacre, where a town was flourishing and was burned to the ground, burned and bombed to the ground, or a situation like redlining, steering, blockbusting, many of those procedures which were done by realtors. And today, what we see is a situation where actually Citigroup just acknowledged that in the last 20 years, the American economy has lost $16 trillion. $16 trillion as a result of these discriminatory practices, right? Because again, the redlining is still there.
Yes.
You drive to certain parts of town and you're like, how come everyone's black and brown? How come the streets aren't paved properly? How come the lights don't work? How come the schools are poor? And how come the inventory is run down? Right? The inventory is run down both because of those structural things, right, as far as streets and lights and schools, but it's also because you have biased appraisers. And the appraisals come in short, so you can't get the value, so you can't borrow against the home to renovate it, to bring it up to quality, right? So there's layer upon layer upon layer. What we can do as realtors is acknowledge our own bias and work against those policies, right? And if in my case, I have to be very careful as far as appraisals are concerned, because there is still that bias within the community. So sometimes I cannot show up to an appraisal, right? Or I have to send someone who looks more like the appraiser, right?
I had an agent who told, and I never thought about it until they told me this. They were selling in a condo in Culver City, and they asked me to do the appraisal if I could be there. And it just blew my mind because it's something I would never ever think about. And you get the same thing. What's that movie, American Fiction, I think, which just came out. And I have a friend who's a black writer and went to Carnegie Mellon, has a graduate degree. And they're always saying, that's a really great script. What do you have that's street? And the fact that is still
movie.
I really enjoyed that.
By the way.
And do you think it actually happened, or do you think it was just a fantasy? And we'll talk about that later. But
Okay.
because the ending is I keep going back and forth on it.
Well, I think it descends into allegory once you get to the end. Because I don't know that each and every aspect of that was like some factual interaction that happened, but I think it was just to kind of tie it up because it had gone to such a deep place.
Yeah.
To try to just a little bit more of a mind fantasy. Right?
You are so much smarter than I am. So I was like, oh, okay, damn, I didn't think about that, but I'm going to impress my girlfriend with that comment when I go home tonight. But back to it, like this systemic stuff. We have now these classes on implicit bias in California. I think it's only in California. I don't know if this is nationally in terms of the appraisal. But the appraisal, fair appraisal. I guess maybe that is national. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And in every license I take a class in implicit bias. So we're doing a really good job of it, but so much of it is just lip service to it, right? So what do you think? How can we educate people more to have to better understand it? Because I've taken all the classes, but I haven't lived that experience, and I don't think about it on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I think conversations like this are important. And having a situation where you had to do the appraisal, now you realize, oh my God, it's not just Tia saying it, it's not just the agent I'm working with. This is what we're dealing with, right? Yeah. And the reason that we're here is that the appraisal industry is primarily older, white, and male. And the way that you become an appraiser favors corruption, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you have to intern with another appraiser, and that appraiser decides who is it that is going to be, who's allowed into the industry. I got to tell you, one of the first times, because I'm really active on social media, I posted a video about this appraisal issue. Someone reached out to me from Alabama. A white woman reached out to me from Alabama about her brother, who was in his 20s, who really his dream was to become an appraiser. But no one would allow him to apprentice because they wanted to keep all the appraisals for themselves and be able to drive the prices up. And keep younger people out.
So I have a follow-up to this. I used to be with a very big box brokerage, and I was at their national convention, and I was sitting next to my friend James, who's an agent of color, and he started singing One of These Things Doesn't Belong Here, right? The Sesame Street song. And I'm like, what? And he goes, how many other black agents do you see here? And it really was like this. See, how, as an industry, do we get more agents of color?
Well, I think it's not as easy as just kind of hanging the sign out and saying, I'm looking for agents. I mean, you really have to seek people out.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that, and we have to be very careful here, right? Because I think Asian folks are doing really well. In many cases, they are economic migrants. But when you're talking about the black community, we were not brought here willingly. And we have existed under these systems for a very long time. So there are some things that we just, out of safety concerns, stay away from, right? So if we see a room full of white people, in some cases, we're like, am I safe here?
Sure.
Right? I mean, I see that in an AR, and I'm like, I know I'm safe.
Yeah.
But it's still a little bit disappointing, but, here we go. So, it's, I hate to say the Titanic, but it's like it's like you're steering a very large ship with an AR.
Yeah, the Olympia.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think this is where we are doing our best to elevate the industry and actually make a change. Whether we'll see it in our lifetime or not, I don't know. But at least we are affording top producers to build their own companies in a way that is representative of the way either the communities they serve or the way they want to portray themselves out in society. And that for me is the best mark that I can leave on the industry because I'm giving an opportunity for those who want to take it. But how do we better encourage people to take that next step?
Sure.
Because being a business owner can be daunting.
Right.
And like you said, if you're already accustomed to be not scared of change, but like have an aversion to change because it's a safety thing, how can we do better to bridge that gap for other top producers?
Right. Well, I do have to give a shout out to Side about this because I certainly couldn't have started my brand without Side because I didn't have access to the funds. I didn't have access to the information that Side provides or the opportunity to acquire that information because that's not something that came through the family. So I would first applaud you for the structure because it really gives us an opportunity to, craft a professional company. And right now, we're all women of color, and that wasn't on purpose. It just kind of happened, but it's exciting. I will say, um, my agents need a lot of input, right? Because they didn't get it at their other companies.
Right.
People just signed them, and I don't know what they were doing. But the amount of, I mean, I guess it's a numbers game. You got 150 people, and
Yeah.
if they do a deal a year, great.
Yeah.
But I really want
You get that monthly desk fee. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to inspire. Producers.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's definitely a heavy lift, but I certainly couldn't do it with outside and the resources they provide. So
Yeah.
I thank you for that.
Well, and I want to just say something about you, though, too, is you're a top performing agent, but you're also really involved in your local. You're really involved in the state. You're really involved nationally. And I think that a lot of times people say, I'm too busy to do that. I'm too busy to do that. And I think we're not going to change the industry unless we get involved. So how do you foster other agents getting involved?
Well, certainly as far as my agents, I'm like, this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that's really helpful.
My way or the highway. Yeah, I like that.
And the thing is, NAR does provide a lot of great assets. Right now, the ABR, which is the buyer training,
Yeah.
is free until the end of the year because of all the buyer broker requirements and the change and the compensation coming out of the MLS. And it has been portrayed as a very complex and difficult reality that we're moving into, but it's not. I think it's great, because I was an internet leads kind of agent. So I would have people that would have me open a door and open another door and open another door. That's all gone now. And we have use of Zoom. So it's a buyer consultation. You have your buyer consultation, you talk about your duties and responsibilities to the client, and then you send that buyer broker agreement, and then we'll go look at a property. It's not let me see who I can just get on the phone and get them to open the door. We're not supposed to be doing that anymore, and I think that's great.
I don't think we were supposed to ever do that, really.
Exactly.
But this was my point earlier, that being and by the way, here's my ABR pin.
Right.
All
right.
I was looking for. That's what I was looking for before. But I think that this is where we're talking about industry professionalism, is because it used to be, I'm a buyer's agent. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to do an open house so I can get clients. No. Why don't you come up with a unique value proposition, or come up with something that you can do, or I'm involved in the community, or I'm whatever. And I think we keep talking about how people are going to be whittled out, and it's going to be the agents that really know their stuff.
Well, and the great thing too is I dig really deeply in Continue. Because I love that. So
and Continue is the platform inside for agent education.
That's correct. That's correct. And within there, I think are the nuggets of how to build a top producing sphere, right? So that's we meet every week. I bring out Mr. Eisenhower. I call him. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but I'm like, we're going to watch Mr. Eisenhower today, and they're really excited for him because it doesn't cost a lot of money. But it's really something that you can do, because a lot of even top producing agents do ignore the sphere, and that's where the money is. That's, everyone wants to go to the online leads. And again, this new procedure will be helpful with that. But it's really the people that you know and love and trust that are going to send you your top clients. So I take them as well. I mean, I sit there and listen as well, and I take notes. I'm like, oh, dang, if I could do that, if I had done that, I'd make even more money. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's a learning experience too, because sometimes there is a reason why the lead gen is kind of like the getting your teeth cut, so to speak, right? And then you hone your skills. But one thing that I think that you do excellently, and that I would love to have you talk about, is mentorship. And like you mentioned, in the appraisal world, you technically have to have an apprenticeship. But we have discussed there should be some kind of requirement where new-ish agents partner with someone who's experienced to actually learn how to be a professional in the craft. How do you facilitate that within your brokerage?
Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And, if there were something that Side were going to do in that regard, I think that would be great.
I'm actually working on I'm working on 2 programs right now, which I'll announce this. One of them is Train the Mentor.
Okay.
So that we can have people that actually are certified mentors, not like the mentor I had
Sure.
when I first got in.
I think that's a great idea. And the reason why I think that's a great idea is because my agents are asking me for it. Because they kind of represented themselves one way, and then when we got in there, I'm like, you have not actually listed a property before, have you?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, but I helped someone, and it's like, you mean by help them list that you sat at the open house? And they were like, yes. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm going to be a little bit more careful with the subsequent agents that I bring on. But no, I mean, they have the entrepreneurial spirit, they're hard workers. So, I'm very happy to be able to say that they are my agents, but I think you're absolutely right. The mentorship is huge because people really don't know how to do the job, and they don't know how to listen, which we all know. We know people don't know how to listen, but they don't know how to actively listen to a client to really hear what they're saying, right? We're not selling them anything. We're problem solving, right? We're taking a look at what their situation is and what we can help them get finance for, and what properties are out there that can fit that calculus. And I think agents are so used to being yes, no. You can buy and you can't buy. That's not our job. Our job is to position, and especially the folks that are the growth markets as far as home ownership are concerned, and that is your traditionally marginalized communities, right? Particularly the Spanish-speaking agents or Spanish-speaking buyers, which is why I made sure that I signed a Spanish-speaking agent, because a lot of the leads that I'm getting off of my properties and the lower dollar values, because a lot of them are first-time home buyers, are Spanish-speaking.
Well,
Like
70%
completely.
coming up between now and what did Jason tell us? I think it was between now and 2035 or something like that. 70% of first-time buyers will be of the Hispanic community.
Absolutely. And I mean, and it's not a monolith, but all I know is I'm getting leads and they're speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Or they're like, do you have someone that speaks Spanish? So I was immediately able to run out and find someone who does speak Spanish and put those folks in their direction. But I do not doubt that stat at all, because it's what I'm seeing.
Yep.
I just love what you're doing. And I love that you said that, well, this is what we do at my company, right? Like, and that's so cool. And so many people start a team because people know my name. I want people to work under it. I want to get these stats under the MLS under my name. The number of agents that will say stuff like it drives me crazy. And you're talking about changing the industry and changing your market. So do you get pushback from agents for that?
I think agents tend to self-select when it comes to working with me. So if they realize, I don't want to work for a Black woman, I don't want to, do that stuff, I don't even have to deal with them because they're not even coming to me, right? You know what I mean? So
that's
it's fine.
nice.
You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, I'm very open as far as anyone that, would like to come and work for us. But, what I find is that when people do get more involved in their local, when they do get more involved at the state, they like it, right? At this point, we're virtual. And I have some of my agents love going to events. So I do quarterly events. Usually it's like a social media training, or I don't know, I make up some reason. You know what I mean? Because there's always something to teach, right?
Yeah.
I had a Christmas party at my house. It was supposed to be from 4 to 6, and I was pushing him out the door at 11:30. You know what I mean? And DoorDash came twice with wine bottles. Because we had such a great time together. But my point was, when you get involved at your local and your state level, there's a lot of events. There's DEI events, there's first-time home buyer events. Oh, that's another thing we do, is a lot of our own first-time home buyer events as well, partnering with nonprofits in the community.
Right, which I think is a really good thing to do, because you can also bring in lenders and who have those programs and really understand how those programs work. So whether you're working with VA buyers or, people with down payment assistance or whatever it may be. And sometimes even, the local city and county has programs where grants are involved. So being a part of those communities, you have added knowledge to help your clients.
Exactly. And one of the last things that we did was not real estate related, which was great because we were the only brokerage there. And it was a anti-racism in education event. And so they had a little place where we could set up the booths, and they had a
That's smart.
That's
program.
very
And
smart.
yeah, so it was really great. So so I had my agents posted there, and you know what I mean? So it was a really nice opportunity, and I would definitely recommend that for
Wait, let's hit
partners.
on that real quick because that is a massive, awesome takeaway. If you are looking for community events, don't necessarily go find the realtor ones,
Right,
but go to other ones that you have a passion for, whatever it may be. It could be, preventing wildfires, does not
Sure.
matter, but post up, represent your community, and that is the good networking. That is huge. I want to get a plug in for your Instagram or social handles that you have so that way people can follow you.
Sure. So I'm on TikTok at Homes by Tia, and I'm on Instagram at Homes Y by Tia. So thank you very much.
Holmes White, W-H-Y?
Yeah. So it's HOMESYBYTIA. That's Instagram, and then everywhere else it's just Homes by Tia.
And you're on TikTok.
Yes, I am.
That's fantastic. Well, at least for now, right?
Right. I think I don't know that that's actually. I mean, we're not
I don't
talking
think
about that
it's
at
not gonna
all.
happen.
But I mean, I don't think it's actually going to get banned because, first of all, it's a company.
Yeah.
It's a private company. But secondarily, I think it really has become the voice of a generation.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not all home buyers, but the appraiser's sister, I guess that was, who reached out to me, or the gentleman who wanted to be that was TikTok.
Oh,
you know?
interesting.
Wow.
So TikTok is really international.
Yeah.
So I've had people reach out to me from all over the country, certainly, and then internationally as well. And I just don't know that some of the existing platforms have that kind of reach. So I think it would be unfortunate because that's how we can talk directly to our younger generations. And they want to hear about these issues, and they want to understand why cities look the way they do, why there are large swaths of town. I mean, in Oakland, 80% of the land would have qualified for whatever that program was that Trump had that was supposed to be like lower income places that you could invest and get a tax savings.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There's some, I mean, it was kind of a BS policy anyway. But the fact that 50% of the land mass falls under that category, yes, we've got $10 and $20 million properties in Oakland, and in the hills and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of opportunity for development and investment. And every city is the same, right? Because every city was redlined.
Yeah.
So this is what we need to be doing as a real estate community is deconstructing these structural issues so that we have something that we can all share and grow in moving forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Gosh, we have so much. There's so much to do. There's so much you can do. You can reach out to Tia and pick her brain and get started, or join your local association or any affinity group that you support. But thank you, Tia, for taking time out of your busy day, and I very much appreciate all the advocacy you do.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. My pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and we will see you on another episode of Own It.